Welcome to session 3 of the Generation to Generation course, where we'll be looking at the story of Ruth and Naomi. Back in 2019, Finland announced a new coalition government. What was noteworthy about this was the nature of the people who were the leaders of those parties. All 5 of them were women, and 4 of them, including the Prime Minister, were in their 30s. Today's story is a reminder, like that government is, of the important role that younger people can have in supporting older people, but also the role that older people can have helping younger people too. The story of Ruth is an important one for us to learn, for she was the great-grandmother of King David and features in Jesus' genealogy in Matthew's Gospel. The story starts with Naomi and her husband and her 2 sons in Bethlehem. But famine comes and they go to Moab to find food. They stay there and the 2 sons marry to Orpah and Ruth, but tragedy strikes. The husband and both sons die, and Naomi is left without any security and without any hope. She decides to return to Bethlehem, and her 2 daughters-in-law go with her, but Naomi decides their future is best served going back to their families. Orpah agrees eventually and goes back to her home family. But Ruth doesn't. She commits herself to Naomi, whatever the future might bring. She says these lovely words as recorded in Ruth 1, verse 16 to 17. She says to Naomi, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried." Clearly, there is some significant bond that has formed between these 2 women of different generations. And as time goes on, we haven't got time to look at the whole story today, we'll see how Ruth helps Naomi to be fed, and by gleaning and by helping in many ways. And Naomi helps Ruth to understand the new culture and the new country and the new way of doing things. But it's really important, I think, to acknowledge bonds that can form between different generations. Sometimes those bonds can form through common experiences. Those who have had children and grown up can be a great help to those who are dealing with young children. Sometimes bond comes through proximity. I know for many years I travelled up to a school I was teaching in Hagley on a train, and over the years I was doing it, I suddenly found myself usually in the same carriage, and there were a couple of other people there who also went on that carriage every day. There was an older guy, I was in my 20s and he was in his late 40s, and there was a student going off to school. And although we were different ages and had different interests, by being in proximity day after day, we got to know each other and built up good friendships. We used to chat away all the time. Bonds can build sometimes through need. I know when we first moved to Worcester when we were newly married and got our first house, we didn't have many things. Particularly, we didn't have a lawnmower. So we used to borrow from our neighbour, Stan, our elderly neighbour, and we'd borrow his lawnmower and we'd share things and borrow things off him. And that need led to a relationship. We got to know him really well. Maybe bonds come through shared interests. I know my grandfather really loved lawn bowling, and when he was in his 80s, he entered a competition with a young lad who was still at school, who also loved lawn bowling, and they entered this competition and won it. A remarkable sight, seeing a school child and an 80-year-old both shared with an interest, building a relationship because of that. Ruth and Naomi's story remind us of the wonderful things that can happen when different generations connect together and form a bond. And I'd encourage you, as you're looking through this session, to reflect on some of those ways in which bonds can form with you and other generations in the coming weeks. I hope you enjoy the session today.